Welcome back. It's time now for an extremely interesting discussion. Credit Suisse has come out with a report on super trends that capture momentous changes affecting Asia-Pacific markets. And the two momentous changes that have taken place in the recent past, the one has been the COVID-19 pandemic, and the second one, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They've led to a fair amount of volatility in the financial markets, as a result of which, there are a fair amount of these underlying trends which may perhaps, one can benefit from and also look at businesses through that lens. We have Nannette Hechler-Fayd'herbe, who's the head of global economics and research at Credit Suisse, joining us now. Thanks a lot, Nannette, for joining in. What are the dominating trends that you foresee from your report, which may perhaps change the way we look at businesses now? And what businesses do you think should one invest in looking at these underlying trends?
Really 6 super trends for us, very strong ones. To start with demographics, we are expecting population aging to really change how the economy is functioning because of the new needs that are going to stand ahead. And at the same time, as we are having this global population aging that is going to happen over the next generation and starting already now very visibly in so many economies, we are having the handover, the passing the baton of one generation to the next. The millennials and the Gen Z are rising now and are changing completely how consumer trends, for example, are continuing to set. So the millennials' values for us, this generational change, is a very important one for multiple years. And as we go, it does have implications on the technological revolution. The digital age is here to stay and is coming to more and more sectors as innovations are continuing to give that the drive. So here is your third super trend. And now one that has really come strongly to the fore because of the headwinds and the challenges that people are feeling right now is climate change and the decarbonization of our human and economic activity. So that's a fourth very important super trend. And finally, as we think about climate change, it is very obvious that infrastructure will have to simply get upgraded and adjusted to the new ways of the economy. So we are anticipating a multiple years plan of infrastructure spending. It's a little bit the Marshall Plan of the new age, and that is our fifth super trend. And finally, we also think that political cycles are very conducive to important investment trends. We have called it the anxious societies and inclusive capitalism, as societies are now faced with a number of challenges, whether they are concerning job security and staying fit for the labor market that is ever changing, whether it is security by and large, from personal all the way to national, and importantly, now that inflation is so high, affordability of basic services.
Okay, well, Nannette, we are just about getting news from Reuters, which is hitting the screen, about Malaysia probably looking to cut palm oil export tax to 4 to 6% from 8%. And that just ties into the larger theme of inflation, which the global economy is dealing with at this point in time. From that perspective, one, do you think inflation is a super trend? And from that perspective, how exactly would you make an investment decision or an investment thesis?
I mean, for us in inflation, although these are certainly aspects that come with business cycle and also as a result of supply issues, and we have had out of the pandemic a very specific supply issue, I don't think we are framing it quite as a super trend in itself, because remember, I mean, central banks are currently acting, responding to that, and there is a very clear priority to get that under control. So it's not likely and hopefully is not going to stay and be a super trend. But what inflation is doing is, Ekta, it is producing additional catalysts for things like affordability, for the certainly climate change that is suddenly also precipitated, accelerated because of the thought of making energy, electricity affordable. So it acts as a catalyst.
Would you have a number to quantify the size of the opportunity in each of these super trends, or is there any way one can do it? Say, for instance, infrastructure itself would add X% to the global GDP, a country's GDP, technology, silver economy, the millennials theme that you have alongside climate change. Is there a way to quantify the size of this opportunity? And are there any listed companies in both developing as well as developed worlds where one could invest using this as the pollstar?
Oh, of course. Just to start with the second part of your question, which is the easier one, there are different ways, multiple ways of implementing the super trends as an investment proposition. One is indeed to identify, and this is what we have done since the very beginning, identify the companies that we, from an equity research perspective, are quite convinced about, but that are fitting perfectly those super trends. In fact, it is a way of being selective and of selecting listed stocks. So per super trend, just to give you an idea, we have identified 25 to 40 stocks that in our view best capture the investment opportunity. And of course, these stocks are then changing over time. They're actively managed in the sense of the analysis and how they fit with the theme. So that's one way of implementing it. And a second way is that, of course, there's a number of investors that prefer to have a solution that is managed for them. And there are many funds that are very actively managed and that we can map to the super trends. That's another very convenient way of accessing it. So it is a very flexible way of selecting single equities as a result of the thought process. In terms of the opportunities, it gives you a sense that as an investment opportunity, this is a multi-scale and multi-billion investment opportunity. Since the launch, we have seen some very strong growth rates in the solutions, in the equities that we have recommended as part of that active investment framework. But then in terms of their impact on the economy, that is a bit more difficult to quantify. We have certainly not in a position right now to say how much does that add, for example, in terms of GDP growth. But what we can say is since 2 years, the impact on UN SDGs, the mapping on the Sustainable Development Goals is fully done.
Okay, all right, Nannette, we have completely run out of time, but a very interesting note there. So I'm sure we'll get you back on to discuss this more in detail. Thanks very much for joining in and giving us your perspective in terms of super trends. We need to take a short break, but we'll get you more on the markets and stock-specific action on the other side. Stay tuned.